All right, how you doing? We are on. I'm waiting for my guest. Come on, he just called me, and so we're. I'll let him in as soon as I see he's on. We are going to talk about some things today. So, what I do, and I just redid my website. So, my website is my business is your business dot info, and I just redid it, and I'm proud of it. I kind of put it in a different order. Things that I help people with the most, um, specifically, how to, you know, save money, make money, pay less in taxes, get proper protection, that kind of stuff. Okay, and the the so that's, but then also helping people, small businesses get started with their qualified plans, the 401k, the profit sharing, the cash balance strategies, um, the and then the supplemental um, tax advantage plans that'll they're that'll help them, because those tax deferred plans, you're going to get taxed later. That's why it's called tax deferred. You're going to get taxed later, and usually you're taxed more. The Because your money grew, and then that's when Uncle Sam's going to make more. So it's a great savings plan for your Uncle Sam, right? All right, come on. The All right, come on. So here we go. Here he came on. He's on. All right. The All right. Thank you for coming. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. I hear you too. All right. So I kind of give a little intro. So what we're going to talk about today, but introduce yourself. This is Joe Martinez, the multi-talented uh, friend of mine from from McAllen, Texas. Tell, kind of give an overview of like what you're capable of.
Well, you're too kind. Thanks again. I am. Um, I guess I wear multiple hats, but I'm an educator. I taught high school for 23 years. I taught at the university. I was a university lecturer for about 10 years. And so, and in the field of my field, the audio video production. And so I've been in that field since the 1990s. I believe it was 1992 when I first started in the film industry in the Dallas area. And then when I moved down here in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s, to the Rio Grande Valley, then I started in broadcasting, did radio and television. And so I stuck with it. It stuck with me, and so then I became an educator, and simultaneously, I had the opportunity to open up my own small radio station. I also was fortunate enough to be able to build a cable television station for a school district, and I operated a over-the-air TV station down here in the McAllen area. And so my experience has been in all three fields: for radio, TV, film. They often ask me, which one do you like the most, and I can't decide. I love film, radio, and television. the same. I've got have a couple films that I've worked on that are out in platforms. One of them that I worked on made it to Netflix. It was up for about 4 years, and then it was taken down, and hopefully they'll bring it back on. It's a Christmas movie, so every Christmas I hope that they bring it back up. But other than that, I just, I'm just a family man. I love my family. I love my kids, and I just uh, hope to leave this world a better place than how I found it.
Oh, that okay. So that's all awesome. So when I came here to Houston, I was recruited or approached about being the director of a voc rehab program for veterans and ex-felons. And so what they wanted me to do, they basically wanted me to be kind of like a drill instructor, right? Or in the Navy, they call it company commander or whatever, right? They wanted me to be the guy that was the authority that got that they were going to put up a voc rehab program, and the primary disciplines were going to be heavy equipment mechanic, heavy equipment operator, and broadcasting. Okay, and I had talked to you about that, about
Mm-hmm.
possibly being involved with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time. What happened was I lined up the financing for it because that's my background, and they didn't like the source of funds
Okay.
because the guy that that I went through, trying to be up, brag about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is from the Rothschilds," and they're like, "No, no," and they didn't accept the funds, right? So everything fell apart. Okay, but in the process, see, I had a pretty good idea how to deal with veterans, being a veteran, and then before I was a Navy SEAL, I taught boxing and physical fitness to Navy pilots and air crewmen. And so what they wanted me to do was get these guys on a proper nutrition plan, because there's a direct correlation between nutrition and mental health. And then get them working out, get them endorphins kicking, and make them feel better about themselves. And that aspect, like with the Navy SEALs, when you work out, they make you work out every morning for a couple hours, right? And that you got to stay in shape and you got to be able to function to do the mission, right? But it also, that camaraderie gets in, happens in that situation, right? And then so that's where that happens, right? And then we were going to put together teams and get them out there and supporting each other. And it was, can you imagine a crew? Let's say you had a team where, one person, they do the broadcasting and they sell the on-air advertising for the businesses, other businesses they're supporting, right? The heavy equipment operator, the heavy equipment mechanic, whatever other trades that they're training on, right? Well, what I saw, the difference between the veterans. So the veterans are real good at adapting to systems and following the protocols. That's what they live for, right? Just tell me what I got to do, right? And that's how they are, right? Where the ex-felons, they're a little more creative minded. They will stretch things as far as they can stretch, and sometimes past where they're supposed to go, because you got to get them to color inside the lines, right? But when you put the two together, whoa, you can really blow something up, right? Because these guys that they've been, they had the cap on them when they were incarcerated for all this time, and they're eager to get going. Okay, I right now I live right between Tunnels to Towers and Camp Hope, and so Tunnels to Towers is a transitional housing facility. They bought a old hotel, and turned it into a veterans housing, temporary housing, while they're getting together for getting their VA disability and getting the VA voc rehab training, whatever trade it is, right? And then yeah, and then same thing with the Camp Hope. These guys are all ate up with PTSD. A lot of them have substance abuse issues, right? But once they get themselves clean of whatever alcohol or drug addiction that they have, they're ready to go. Right? They're chomping at the bit. They're very eager. It's just an extreme contrast. The lady that did the help them find jobs there at Tunnels to Towers, that poor woman was beside herself because all these people wanted to do is play video games all day. They had a place, they had a place to sleep, a warm place to sleep out of the rain, and food to eat every day, 3 squares a day, right? And they weren't motivated. They were satisfied with that being where they're at, and they go for crazy. So it's like I used to joke around it that the guys that are in prison for violent crimes and somebody who's a Navy SEAL or Force Recon Marine or Ranger or Special Forces, they're basically, it's like the difference between a domesticated canine and a wild wolf or coyote. They're basically the same animal. Just one of them's, trained to provide a service to mankind. The other one's just on their own. And it's basically the same thing going on. Okay. So with that, I started learning about these different additions that people could add on to whatever their trade was. So let's say they got, there's a welding school here in Houston. It's one of 3 in the country that they teach underwater welding. And they make them get their FAA Part 107 license, which is the ground school for becoming a pilot, actually, is what you need to be able to fly a drone. But they do it so they can operate the underwater drones. Okay. But that same license, they can get a DJI Mini and get a contract to maintain a pipeline or water towers. They break out their drone, fly the pipeline, find out where the damage is, break out their cutting torch and their welder and get busy. Okay. And so that kind of was the start of it. Right. Then there's in the hair business. Oh my gosh. So I kind of first started talking to trade schools by talking to barber college and some cosmetology schools. And because, like in California, it's all cash business. There's no 401k or a pension for a hairdresser, right? If they don't save their money, they'll stand behind a chair the rest of their life. Okay. And then there's things that they can add on, different the same license, they can add on different services. One of those, which makes the most amount of money, is as a wig maker. And I had a girlfriend was a master wig maker, but she's a celebrity hairstylist. She does all the hair and makeup for shows like Dancing with the Stars and CSI New York and Dean Cain's hair and all that, right? And so helping her, I got to see, like her income went from $240,000 a year doing hair to half of that when 2008 hit. And that really set her back. And I ran into her in 2010. And so she had gone to the payday loan place to get through the month, and the interest rate's so high, that's like usury. And I'm like, no. So I set her up with a debt roll-up strategy to pay off her debt so she could keep her cash flow. Back then, those prosthetic wigs were like $440 a pop. And those women like every 3 weeks, because they're paid for by the health insurance companies. So if women have lost their hair from cancer treatment
Mm.
or the health insurance companies pay for their prosthetic wigs. So they were in like every 3 weeks, and she had like 13 of those clients. And then I set her up with a California municipal bond fund because of the tax advantages and the guarantees for the for her emergency fund, right? And then she got me talking to the cosmetology schools. Okay, there in California. Oh, then I came to Texas. Oh my God, I couldn't believe, especially in the Valley. I mean, it's the same thing up here in Houston, but the amount of barber shops and hair salons and cosmetology schools, it's like, I don't have that problem. Yeah, I go into the hair salons. I go, can you help me? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, right? But it gets the conversation started, right? But but it's now those prosthetic wigs are $800 on the low end.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And the profit's like $700 on each one at that baseline amount, right? So that can really give a shot in the arm to somebody in that profession, somebody who's a welder, learning, getting a Part 107 license, getting a drone. There's HVAC technician that also does the inspections for real estate transactions, the home inspections, because that's a big part of it. That's a huge part of it is the HVAC, and then the mold remediation, all those things that can be an add-on. It's taking that same knowledge base to increase, for creating multiple income streams.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Now, I'm with the broadcasting background, I've seen other people that have got all kinds of, they're busier than a one-arm paper hanger in that industry. Do you ever heard of, I think I told you about DNA Studios here in Houston.
Correct.
Yeah, they do all the Fury MMA. They do the broadcasting for the University of Texas and wherever they're playing all over the country. They're all over the place. I think they got like 6 TV trucks, and they're all over the place all the time. They're really busy, right? They came to me because they wanted to do boxing. So what along the lines of what I'm talking about? Can you tell me, what have you done, or what have you seen? What do you know that is along those same lines, taking that same knowledge base and creating those multiple streams of income?
Everyone's got a dream. Everyone was called to do something. If we're talking about if you're, for the believers, we've all been given a calling in our lives. If you're not a believer, you probably have a dream that you want to do, that you want to accomplish. And so now I believe it's a little easier for us believers because we have someone to depend on. We have the Lord, because if God calls you, he's going to also equip you. And even if you walk away, he will restore you, and he will polish you. He will refine you, and prepare you for that calling. Prepare you for that dream that you have, that passion of yours. But I guess as an encouragement, and me being in education for such a long time, I encourage you to, if you've got that dream, just prepare yourself. Go out and learn as much as you can. Now it's we've got the internet, we've got YouTube. it's like a university there. You could go and research a topic that you like, that dream that you might have, and just prepare yourself for it. Do all the research, pick people's brains on that, and so that's kind of how my project began. Let's take for example my radio station. I was a college student when I first started working in radio, volunteering in radio stations and so forth. And so um, when I moved on to television, I had a boss who was a your very typical, stereotypical, hard boss, right? He was a no nonsense type of fellow, and it made sense. He's a multimillionaire. He owned various TV stations, various radio stations, different markets, and a very knowledgeable man. He currently he owns arenas. He owns he's just a very successful man. And I remember being a snot nosed college kid at the time, working at his TV station. And I remember he would call these staff meetings, and he would tell us what went wrong, kind of briefs and debriefs that we would have after certain big live shows or whatever it was. And I don't even remember what was the dumb comment that I made, but I was a snot-nosed college kid who thought I knew everything, right? And here's just his response to my dumb comment was, well, when you have your own TV station, when you have your own station, you could do whatever you want to do, you know? And so I didn't take that surprisingly, I didn't take that as an insult. I took that as it opened my eyes. It said, you know what? Why not? Why not pursue that? It's a goal of mine. It's been a goal of mine. So then that's when I started preparing myself, started finding out, doing the research. Okay, how does one, become a radio station owner, or how does one start a TV station? And so when I kept working in the television stations, I was working for a local ABC affiliate and then a local Univision affiliate. I started not staying in my lane. I had my job to do, but I would do my job, and then I would go and pick the brains of those around me. I would go pick the brains of the engineers. How does the signals, how do you send the signal out from here to people's homes? And I would just start asking questions and start finding out about the engineering part of the TV stations and I would go with him. He says, would you like to come with me to the tower? I would say, sure. I would go and started learning. So I guess from that process, I was able to later on go on and build a radio station, go on and build a cable TV station, and then go on to manage a over-the-air television station in the area. And so I guess my encouragement is pursue, if you're going to pursue your dream, pursue your calling, and trust that the Lord will prepare you. Trust that your preparation will be enough. Well, we will always have doubts in our minds. Whether it be the enemy putting those doubts in our minds, whether it's us putting those doubts in our minds. I'm not good enough. I'm not prepared enough. I don't. You know, don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to your calling. Pay attention to your dream and follow that. And trust the process. Trust the Lord. Trust the process, and you'll get there. And how do you know if it's something that you're meant to do? Well, if you're a believer, it's easy. If does it glorify the Lord? Does it advance His kingdom? If you can answer those questions, will it benefit my family? Will it benefit me in doing something like that? If it's something that's good, that's godly, that's holy, it's trust the Lord. If you're not a believer and you're trying to pursue a dream, well, will this benefit? Are you going to leave this place a better place than you found it? Yes. If you can answer yes, it's going to benefit your family. It's going to benefit you. It's going to positively influence people. Well, then go for it. Do it. And it's the same with different projects that I've jumped on. The same process, everything from like promoting concerts to um even being in the military. um is it beneficial? Is it going to advance His kingdom? Is it going to be helpful? Is it going to help someone? Yes. Well, then do it. And so e- uh, currently I also co-owned a pest control company. And so I try to, do all things as unto the Lord. And so when I'm treating people's homes, or when I tell the text, you're treating someone's home, make sure that you are doing this as unto the Lord. Make sure that you are doing a good job with this. You know, do it as if you are spraying your own home. Okay, treat people's homes as your own. Be respectful, and leave it a better place than how you found it. And so I guess that's kind of wraps up what how I approach projects and things and so forth.
The hang on.
Sure.
The the hang on. The
No problem.
the did you ever connect with Dr. Carl Kobe?
No, no, I did. Unfortunately, I did not.
So that guy, he was a retired Army Ranger colonel,
Mm,
Vietnam vet. The guy did like 12 tours in Vietnam,
wow.
and he had a PhD. And um, he, when I came to the Valley, the scientist that created the PCR system for NASA, we were trying to figure out how to use a drone in the air to find listeria in the dirt, and I just couldn't figure that out. Right? Because it doesn't affect the plants. There's no it's a microscopic organism that it's not detrimental to the plants, right? It's only the humans that that ingest it or come in contact with it, right? But that's the big problem because it comes from the dirt, right? And so he created a whole business around the food safety side. Okay, so he had like 6 different businesses that all supported the produce industry. And so he has a chemical company that manufactures the cleaners, degreasers, and sanitizers to clean the warehouses to fight the pathogens. And then the whole system, you know, to be compliant with the government, which is Primus. They partner with Primus to do the inspections. And they had the consultants that would help the warehouses, meet those requirements, and do the training. They had continuing education through. He had his own university, a nationally accredited university, right? And so that's where I first got to see that using that your same knowledge base for multiple businesses. I was his representative in the Valley for all of his businesses. That's what I did.
Mhm.
That's how I first got this. That's where that first came to be an understanding of how that can work, taking that same knowledge base to create those multiple streams of income instead of that job mentality. I'm just like, I have to show up every day and I have to work with this guy and do his stuff and when that looking at your job coming right out of high school or college is really your training ground of how business gets done, right? And once you understand that, you can apply it to other things. And which is really interesting is it's amazing how when you have an interest towards something that your knowledge in that area grows, right?
Mhm.
People can have hobbies that they're so good at their hobbies, they could have a business, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I always tell my students, whether high school or the university students, you know, if money wasn't an option or a wall or a burden, what would you do for the rest of your life? And then most of them will tell me, their hobby. They will say, well, make that your career, because you're going to be successful regardless, because you're going to love it. You're going to love waking up every day to go do that thing that you're doing. It's your hobby. You don't see it as work, but turn your hobby into your career, and you'll be successful because you'll be happy doing it, and
Yeah,
you'll, you know,
when I was in the mortgage business, so I learned, everything's on a cycle. It's up and down, up and down. And then if you're just doing it to make the money,
mhm,
you're subject to those cycles, right? But if you're doing it because you love it, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. You're going to be after it because you love it. Okay. And that's, everywhere I've been, whether it was in the gym, teaching boxing, I love seeing this kid who's boxing because he doesn't want to get picked on anymore. Just all of a sudden now his confidence is through the roof because that's not a problem anymore because he knows he can handle himself. And now his mind starts to expand, right? And or the same thing, teaching marksmanship. That was a big part of what we did in the SEAL teams. New Navy SEALs, getting them to qualify expert, or going to Colombia or Honduras or Venezuela or all these different places, teaching these counter drug agents, from those countries, how to be functional with a firearm, patrolling and tactics and all this kind of stuff. You can see somebody evolve from somebody who just doesn't, they're just doing it because they need to make money to pay the bills, right? Or to survive. But now you're getting them where they're starting to see the big picture and understand the process. And so I kind of take that whole mission planning concept to financial services and basically consulting for a business. I don't charge money to consult a business. I want them to make more money so they have more money to do something with me. Mm-hmm. I have a guy, perfect example. I switched companies and I had a great, nice, big, beautiful office on 290 here in Houston I could bring people to. And then I switched company. I didn't have that office no more. I got a little corner office in my apartment, right? But when I would have appointments, I'd go to a coffee shop, right? Well, now I found one of those office share places. One of my clients, this client I'm telling you about. So I'm at this coffee shop. I'm setting up my laptop, and this guy starts talking to me, and he finds out that I used to be a Navy SEAL, and his favorite uncle. Everybody's got a favorite uncle, right? Well, his favorite was Navy SEAL. Right away, there was that bond, right? So I gave him my card. I started answering some questions. He calls me up. He's like, I started this business. I have these sensors, these acoustic sensors that can detect the cracks in fuel cells. His primary clients were chemical companies. There's a lot of chemical companies here in Houston. And he was making like $58,000 a year in 2022. But then SpaceX had a rocket blow up on the launch pad and called him, and his income popped in 2023 to 1.38 million. And then 2024, 1.4 million. But then when Trump started talking about the tariffs, the German company he bought those sensors from called him up and made him their U.S. partner. And he did all the, he did everything for them, right? And, he was their rep. So his income's up to 2.5 million. Do you know what that tax bill did to him? Right? And he needed, he wanted to start a 401k. He doesn't have a lot of employees, but he turned me onto Gusto.
Okay.
Because what happened was one of his employees that I did a key man policy for wanted to do an HSA account, a health savings account. That's like the only, you get a tax deduction on the contribution, a tax deferred growth, and it's tax free when you draw it out, as long as it pays for health or, your doctor bills or medications, right? That's tax free all the way. Okay. Well, none of my providers offer that, right? Mm-hmm. And I found out that Wells Fargo will set you up with a health savings account, but you got to have somebody administer it. And I'm thinking, I bet you a payroll administration company would do that. Well, he happened to use Gusto. Well, come to find out, not only do they do payroll administration, they do HSA administration, but they'll also get him in their group plan for health insurance, right? Even a sole proprietor. with them. That's hard to find. Less than 10 employees, it's really hard to find group health insurance. And then also they'll set him up with a 401k plan. Okay. And then I educate him about profit sharing. So between the 401k and the profit sharing and then cash balance strategies, he can put away $460,000 a year tax deferred. That'll save him $170,000 a year in taxes. Now I get paid on the tax or on the cash balance strategies, right? The 401k and the profit sharing, I don't get paid on that. But he would have not known anything about the profit sharing if I wouldn't have informed him on it. Okay, they didn't tell him about that. They said, yeah, we can do a 401k for you. But that's not a third of what he can save in taxes, right? So doing all that, but then down the road at age 73, when he's got to take his mandatory distributions, they'll be between, depending on the market, $350,000 to $417,000 a year and he's got to pay tax on that. But that would be between $110,000 and $150,000 a year. So I'm taking some of that tax deferral and putting it in a tax advantage plan, so he'll have enough tax-free income to offset what he's got to pay in taxes at age 73. So that's one part of what I do. That's why most people in my industry don't take the time to help a small business get started with their 401k and their profit sharing and cash balance strategies, because it takes a while and you don't really get paid that much money. But there's other stuff. Every single one of the employees, I sit down with them, help them figure out their asset allocation. And then I find out what else they have, right? What else I can do for them. So I get set up as the expert. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so these are the kind of things. That's why I have my website. I've had that website for like 10 years, and my business is yourbusiness.info. And I just got done giving it a facelift. So it's really getting into what I do for people, right? Helping them, because it's in the industry. It's hard to explain. Like when I'm on these calls with the Christian Entrepreneur Club, and I say I'm in financial services, the person running the call, she doesn't even know what that means, right? So I tried to set up the website to make it simpler and little short AI videos. I do the voiceover. I have a script and I read it into a recording. I post it into Pictory and it spits out a AI video for me that does the promotion. But I did that. But I'm licensed in Texas, all of Texas, California, Georgia, Michigan, and Kansas right now. Oh, and Idaho. I'm also I'm in Idaho now. But
That's fantastic.
But these are the things I enjoy doing. It's very, very similar to mission planning. Like my first deployment was to the Persian Gulf in 1988 when the USS Vincent shot down the Iranian Airbus.
Okay.
And I was the intel rep in my platoon. So the Darien Tank Farm and the Basra Shipyard and Farsi Island, all those targets, I still have in my head, right? I still. What my job was to go through the target folders and read all the message traffic. And military message traffic is like a whole nother language. And you had to figure out what's coming from who and whatever. And I would have to put together a brief and then brief the platoon in real English on what the targets were, right? And so they could understand. And that was my job. And it's basically reading the tea leaves.
Were you already on the teams then?
Yeah. I was in the SEAL teams. I was the intel rep in the platoon. I was the assistant intel rep, and I was the assistant air operations rep in that platoon. Then my next platoon, I was primary air operations and primary communications. And then once I became communications, I got strapped with that radio for the rest of my career. But that's okay because you get to hear everything. You get to see what's going on, and that's part of what I see that has to happen for entrepreneurs. You've got to have that big picture. You've got to have that understanding of how it all works to be able to function in your business or head off. I've seen businesses that when COVID hit, the security business had a pop, had an increase because they needed those people to make sure people were compliant, wearing their mask and staying 6 feet apart, and all this kind of stuff, right? But when that was over, they were out of business. There's this whole thing with my youngest son, graduated cum laude from the University of West Florida with a degree in computer science. But now he got lucky to get a job with Navy Federal Credit Union, and now he's helping them develop their AI system that can tell by people's mannerisms whether they're coming in a good mood or not. Yep. But there's other systems that I knew when I was in the drone business that the airports are using. They can detect a terrorist based on the mannerisms, even if they're wearing a costume, even if they're wearing a disguise. There's all kinds of stuff. But because of AI, a lot of people in that industry, they're hurting. I mean, they're basically ratcheted back to helping, building websites for businesses. That's what they're doing. So it's putting things together to help somebody make not just enough money to basically function, but enough money that they can also put something away for their future. I do a lot of.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I want to invite you over to one of our shows again. I know that you were part of one of our broadcasts some time back. So it's been too long. We got to get you back on one of our shows. And so I want to invite you to be part of one of our shows called the Bitcoin Otter Show, because I think that more people need to hear what you've got to say, and we all need to be part of your products that you've got to offer. Now I'm going to go off camera for 20 seconds. I'm listening to you, so I'm going to be here, but I'm just going to have to go off camera for just a second.
All right. Well, from what I got when I was part of that Voc Rehab program, and I got to see, I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out, what a heavy equipment mechanic's going to do or what a heavy equipment operator is going to do. But then seeing what the broadcast side of it could do to increase the opportunities for those other businesses, that's another reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I saw how that could work. That having a business partner that could basically get you exposed and marketed could make all the difference for any business. And I'd like to be able. Could you talk about that for a little bit?
About the marketing and the exposure side of it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Marketing, advertising and all that has I started in the field way back before the internet, and so there's pros and cons to that. But the benefit of nowadays is that it's all at our fingertips. We all have the access to that, and especially with the everyone walking around with a cell phone, in their hands. They marketing, advertising, PR, your videos, it's all here. It's all more attainable now that technology had advanced so much. It used to be that you used to have to go to like an advertising firm to get a commercial done. It used to be that you had to go to a PR agency to get your campaign going. Um,
You muted
had to
yourself.
had to had yeah, I muted myself because the clock was going crazy in the background. Sorry about that. I didn't think it through before the interview, but uh so now it's at your fingertips. And so now there's a lot of if you don't have to have a large advertising budget, you don't have to have a large marketing budget. You can take what you have or what you learn, what you can YouTube and create a video, like you said, you put your videos together, you figure out a way of editing, and that's amazing. That's what everyone's doing nowadays. And so, like I was saying, it used to be that you just have to go to an agency or a firm to get stuff done. Now you can do it. If you don't have a budget, you can do it yourself at home. And I always get asked the question, okay, I want to get into filmmaking. I want to get into advertising. I want to get into broadcasting. I want to get, what equipment should I buy? I get that question asked all the time. And it's on, don't go out and buy anything until you are sure of what you want to do, until you've played around with different equipment. And don't go spend money because, couple things happen. One, equipment's very expensive, and two, technology advances so quickly that in 6 months, what you just bought and thought it was the latest technology is already outdated. So I tell them, use what you have in your hands. What do you have in your hands? Everyone's got a phone. These cameras are better, 10 times better than what we had back in the 90s or even early 2000s, or even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The quality of these things, there's been entire movies filmed on phones. There's been music videos, big budget music videos that have been shot on phones. And so you don't need to go out and spend anything. Just learn how to use it. Learn about angles, keeping it steady, put it on a tripod, get a good microphone on there, and you're good to go. Or even if you don't have a microphone, you just make sure that this microphone here is close to the person that's talking, and you'll get a nice clean sound. These phones are designed to capture the best quality audio when you're close to it. So if you're going to do a short voiceover for your commercial, then put the phone right up to you and talk into it.
That's what I do. That's exactly what
Yeah.
I do. I, I use
You don't need anything else.
I use my Marvelism AI to write I tell it what I want to say. It writes a script for me, and I read it into my phone, and then I email it to my computer, and then I upload it into Pictory, and it creates the AI video for me.
There
And then
you
I
go.
post, right? So that's almost all of my sections on my website. There's a link to a video, and that's how I did it.
Mhm.
On my
There you
your
go.
business, right? Now, you were
Yeah.
saying something that made me think of Les Brown. And did you know that Les Brown used to work at a radio station, right? Started off sweeping the floors
Wow. I didn't know he started sweeping the floors.
and get coffee for the DJs, right? And then one
Mhm.
night, one of the DJs came in drunk, and they called him up and gave him permission to run the
The board.
turntable, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That got his career going. And well, uh, he got started in public speaking in he won the contest, the Toastmasters contest, right? Do you know about Luisa Montavo?
No.
So Luisa Montavo lives in San Juan, and we're both part of Far City Toastmasters and the pilot for the John Maxwell Speakers Club. And Luisa was always trying to win the humor speech contest, and she never could get out of the district, right? Well, then they did away with the humor speech contest, and they just had the international speech contest. In 2019, she entered that for the first time, and she was first runner up in the Toastmasters International Speech Contest for the whole world. And then her cause is rescuing dogs out of the humane shelters. There's more dogs and cats euthanized in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas than there is in the whole state of the whole United States. Okay, and so she's her cause. She goes to these shelters and she picked up these dogs, and she's got connections to get them happy homes in like northern states like Virginia and New York and Rhode Island and Maryland and Massachusetts and Vermont and places like that. And so I was in Virginia Beach for a month doing the Virginia High Performance Program, where they got me eating right and exercising and all that. And she had taken a load of dogs up to Massachusetts, and she was coming back. And in Maryland, she was in the passenger seat. She was sleeping. And the guy driving got between two semi-tractor trailers. One of them jackknifed, and she got really jacked up in the accident. She had fractured the tibia and fibia in both legs, bruised her spleen. She died. She was dead for 3 minutes before they revived her, right? She wakes up in the hospital. She's got these erector sets, traction on both of her legs. She was in the hospital for months in Maryland. And so I went up to see her when I was in Virginia Beach. Literally looked like she got hit by a bus, right? And she spent I'm like worried about her because she's away from her family. She's up there. But every time I called her, man, she was so cheerful and upbeat all the time. And she ended up, they told her she'd never walk again. And now she can walk. She's got a little limp. She didn't like that, but she's walking. And she ended up winning the Toastmasters International Speech Contest, telling her story in 2025. Okay. And what she talks about is like, she was just imagining what it was like, when, she died and was at the pearly gates, and how St. Peter and God, well, she's not scheduled yet. Right. And she does that whole bit. But that was the contest that she won. Right. But she's right there in San Juan.
I need to reach out to her.
I'll send you both of those videos from 2019, her first runner-up speech, and the 2025, her winning speech, right? And I'll get you in contact with her to come in and do an interview with her.
Fantastic.
But she's right there. She's right there in San Juan.
That's great. That's great. Small world.
Oh yeah. But I was like, I'd call her all the time, man, because I wanted to, I just wanted to give her encouragement, let somebody was thinking about her, but like, she didn't need cheering up at all. She was just like all vivacious, and excited about, being there. And then I'm like, getting her, encouraging her to start walking again and going to the gym. And she's, we started off, she was going to Gold's Gym there in McAllen, and getting in the pool. So the buoyancy of the water, her body in the water, she could actually walk in the water. That, so she's doing that. And she didn't even like swimming. She don't even like water. Right. But she wants to walk again. Right. And then she can just pull, and she's like way smart when it comes to business. Right. But she never wanted to do that. Her mom was like the regional director of Mary Kay in the Valley. And her dad was, big into business, had business going on both sides of the border there in the Valley. And so she's really knowledgeable about business and marketing, but she didn't want to do that. Well, now she's in a business. It's her public speaking, right? So I'm hooking her up with some people, to get paid to speak. I mean, they got her going all over the place, going to these Toastmasters groups and events to speak. But, here's what happened. I was looking to see if they had the John Maxwell Speakers Club up here in Houston, and they're not nobody's doing that with John Maxwell. And it was that one pilot that they did in McAllen. And but nobody's doing that. Okay, they want, and so I inquired and found out that nobody's doing that. And then somebody called me back wanting to charge me like $6,000 to make me a better public speaker. And I'm like, who are you? And I go, I know Luisa Montavo. What are you going to do for me? There was silence on the phone, right? And I called Luisa. I'm like, you got the pedigree, girl. You need to be, that needs to be your business, right? But when you have a business, then there's money. And then when there's money, you got to take care of your money, or you're going to make a lot of money for your Uncle Sam, right? And they want you to do certain things. They want you to invest your money certain ways because they want that money to keep working in the economy, right? And so by doing that, you get tax advantage. That's their incentive to get you to save your money and do certain things with your money so you can have those tax advantages. So that's that's what I do for everybody. But here she is, and she's like so smart about money and business, or marketing and business, but she never wanted to do anything with it. But now she's like doing what she loves, like you talk about, right? That would be what I would talk to her about if I was interviewing her. Is now she's doing that thing she loves to do, and now she has a business, right? It just fell on her lap. But really, I tell her, I said, listen, nobody's got a story like you do. I mean, what I did in the boxing ring, and what I did in the SEAL teams, getting shot at, that's a lot compared to most people, but nothing compared to what she's had to go through. I didn't die. I didn't die and then come back and become the best of the world at anything, right? But that's what she did. And she's right there in San Juan. I will definitely connect the two of you.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love for our audience to meet her and know her story. And it aligns with what we do. We're all about education. We're all about promoting local talent. We're all about using audio and video to educate people. Currently at our radio station, when we first started, I was able to work with a grant through the Texas Department of Child Protective Services, and so we started an after-school crime prevention program. And so we brought kids in and we taught them a skill. The gist of it was teach them a skill, keep them out of trouble. In this case, keep them out of trouble and teach them broadcast communication, teach them communication, teach them speaking, teach them how to get on the air and just talk. And so we ran that program from 07 for 10 years to 2017. After that, the grant expired. And so since then, we've been offering just internships. So we've always stayed close to the education, using whatever tools we have to educate people. And so right now we're offering internships for college students. And so we have college students that come in, every semester and learn broadcasting and then move on to go do greater and bigger things. But that's something that she can do. She can, something very much needed. Everyone needs to know how to speak in public, and it helps you in sales. It helps you in whatever business that you're in. It's going to help you. So I think it's amazing what she's doing and the potential that she has to reach out to a lot of people and help them.
Well, so we're about to end here. Thank you so much for coming on and dialoguing. It'll process probably an hour or two, and I'll send you the YouTube of the whole podcast, and then the shorts. I get way more clicks on the shorts than I do on the whole video, right? Yeah, but get it out there, and then I'll connect you with Luisa, and then something else. I got reconnected with Roy Jones Jr. And he's doing this campaign, taking the proceeds from his boxing promotions to pay for the rescue of trafficked children. Right. And that's well, you said something. I'm like, oh, that might be a good connection here. Right.
Yes. That's always been on my heart. That's always been in the uh, one of the goals that I want to be part of and help. So yeah, definitely, I would love to connect.
All right. Well, thank you again, Joe. All right. Have a great
Thank you for your
weekend.
time.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you for having me on the show, and God bless you.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.